Now, Final Score with Nick Walters on Fox 16.
Hey everybody, welcome into the Final Score, where we won't try to spin a 37-0 loss to be a good thing, but maybe we can still spin those frowns upside down. We'll give you folks at home a look at how things went downhill for Arkansas at Georgia, what it'll take for a bounce back, and oh yeah, why it's not time to freak out. But there's no denying it. The most hyped up game of the year ultimately became its biggest letdown as the number 2 Dogs shut out the number 8 Hogs, handing them their first L of 2021. It's a bump in the road for a once unranked team that started from the bottom, and now they're here, just not at the top yet. Our Troy Lynch was in Athens Saturday, so before he put this stinker in the rear view, Troy sums up this one, top to bottom.
Yeah, Nick, it was a humbling experience here in Athens, losing 37-0 to the number 2 team in the country. You prepare all week long, but when it comes down to it, Georgia was just the better team physically. The first shutout for Arkansas since 2018. When we were talking with head coach Sam Pittman right after the game, he just says this team wasn't ready for Georgia.
You know, obviously the entire team wasn't ready for a noon Eastern kickoff, and we weren't. We still have an opportunity to get back and play Georgia again if we can win out on our side. I mean, our pride got crushed. Our ego got crushed. But it's one ball game against a team on the East. And so we're still right where we need to be on the West. And as long as we'll go back and fight and work this week, we'll field a good football team next week, and I believe that that's what we'll do.
To be honest with you, I don't really think there are any positives coming from the game. I think the only positive came from after the game. This was a really cool moment. Right after head coach of Arkansas, Sam Pittman, met up with head Georgia coach Kirby Smart, his old boss. They had a moment, but then right after that, for about a minute, there was just a line of Georgia players just coming up to Sam Pittman, giving him a hug and showing him some love. Obviously, Pittman had a really big impact in those 4 years. He was the offensive line coach for the Bulldogs, so that was a really cool moment to see. However, it's still the first loss of the season, and it's not a pretty one either. However, the Hogs really aren't worried about responding next week when they go to Ole Miss.
I think they're going to respond well. I mean, go back a year ago when we beat Mississippi State and then we lose to the next team, Auburn, on that call and all that stuff. And then we come back, beat Ole Miss. Our kids like to play. You know, in all honesty, we physically got whipped today, and that's what happened. And we also poured dirt on the wound because we messed it up in penalties. And if we can stop the penalties, you know, we'll have a much better chance to win ball games.
We're going to bounce back because that's what we do. That's what good football teams do, and we're a good football team. Just because of how this game went today, that doesn't define us. It defines our game against Georgia, but that doesn't define us of a football team that we are. We have to be able to bounce back and to be able to show that we deserve to be up there and be able to be talked about with one of the good teams in this league.
So now 4-1 on the season, a rebound hopefully in the forecast for the Hogs. So we'll see what happens in Oxford next week. In Athens, Troy Lynch. Nick, I'll send things back to you.
As Troy alluded to, comparing Arkansas and Georgia right now is talking apples and oranges. The Dogs are loaded with 5-star recruits on their roster. The Hogs don't have one. The Razorbacks are on their way to elite territory, while the Dogs, they already are. The glass half full mindset is simple. This loss, no matter how ugly the score and the game looked, wasn't an indictment on Arkansas. Instead, it goes to show the wide gap between the top 2 teams in the SEC, Bama and Georgia, from the rest of the pack. Next week, Arkansas is on to Ole Miss, who, just like Arkansas, fell to a top 2 opponent this weekend. The Rebels went down 35-0 to top-ranked Alabama, eventually adding points in garbage time to make it a 42-21 final. For much of this one, Ole Miss quarterback Matt Corral was shut down. Maybe a slap across the face by Georgia is just the wake-up call Arkansas needed, and a softer, yet still formidable opponent next week is an opportunity to get right. In Oxford next Saturday, the Hogs will be out to prove that their magical month of September was no fluke and that they can still reign supreme in the second tier of teams in the SEC. But sticking with Georgia, for more on Arkansas's play on Saturday, let's swing it back to Troy at Sanford Stadium.
Yeah, Nick, another way to say it, the Hogs got humbled between the hedges today. A 37-0 shutout. It's their first loss of this season, and this was a rough one. And when I say rough, I'm talking about 162 total yards of offense rough. They only had 87 passing yards and 75 rushing yards. It was just a rough day in the office for every Arkansas Razorback. And not just that, they kind of shot themselves in the foot. There were 18 thrown penalties and 13 that Georgia accepted on Arkansas's behalf. So a lot went wrong, and when you look back at the game and you wonder what could have Arkansas changed, well, this is what Sam Pittman had to say.
Man, I don't know, guys. I mean, what's the answer? Don't jump off sides, don't hold a guy, and don't pass interference a guy. Hell, I don't know. I mean, I wish I did. We wouldn't be doing it. We'll try to fix it. You know, we're not going to have a problem regrouping. I mean, we won 4 games in a row, beat a 15 ranked, beat a 7th ranked team. We got a good football team. Georgia's a hell of a lot better than us today. Hell of a lot better than us.
Another crazy part about the game, JT Daniels, who's supposed to be the starting quarterback, did not even play. He was a game-time decision, however, he was too hurt, so he handed the reins over to Stetson Bennett. He was only 7 for 11 for 72 passing yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. However, he honestly didn't need to do much because the ground game was just that dominant. 273 yards on the ground, and they couldn't be stopped.
It's one of those game plans where you go, oh, heck, they're going to come right at us, you know, and they were able to do that. They rotated a lot of guys in there, a lot of kids that played well for them up front. But, you know, your line can be really good, but your running backs, you know, they're bought into the same bully ball type stuff that Coach Smart is bought into.
So after today's win, that means it's back-to-back shutouts for number 2 Georgia. Coming into the game, they were holding opponents to just 5.8 points per game. After the game was over, Sam Pittman, out of all the Georgia teams that he's seen, that he's worked on or played against, he said that was the best 7 defensive front that he's ever seen from Georgia.
Ironically, we played them better last year than we did this year, so we got to figure that out.
That was a really good football team. So you got to be able to say the facts right there. We came in thinking we would have to play a perfect game to be able to win this game and just be us. And we didn't win in any of the phases of the 3 phases, special teams, offense, or defense, and it showed. So I think every single one of us, we're sitting in the locker room and we know what we have to do to be able to get better.
So the only thing Arkansas can do right now is hope that they can regroup and come away with a win against Ole Miss next week. We're going to be talking a lot about how they're going to be able to regroup tomorrow on the Final Score, so make sure you tune into that. But here in Athens, I'm Troy Lynch. Nick, I'll send things back to you.
Now, Hog fans hope brighter days are ahead and soon, starting here with this matchup. And the Associated Press thinks there could be as the Razorbacks move down from 8 to number 13 in this week's AP poll. Ole Miss is at 17. Well, look, last Saturday wasn't fun for Arkansas, clearly, but the fun is just getting started here on the Final Score. So much coming your way after the break. We check in with a Razorbacks football commit who loves what he sees from his future team leading up to their trip to Athens. Hear from the highest ranked Razorbacks basketball commit in decades. That and more after this.
You're watching Final Score on Fox 16.
Welcome back into Final Score. Okay, it was a tough loss to swallow for the Hogs. There's no denying that after being shut out by Georgia 37-0. But hey, it's not all doom and gloom for Arkansas. Don't forget the glimpses of booming potential we saw in their wins over Texas and Texas A&M. One guy who sure isn't hanging his head after this weekend is a future Hog in Little Rock, Joe T. Robinson's Marion Harris. I caught up with the 4-star Robinson offensive tackle on Friday night after the Senators' big win over Arkadelphia. It's Nick Walters here, joined by Marion Harris, the Razorbacks commit offensive tackle for Robinson after their 56-38 win over Arkadelphia. First of all, Marion, we got to talk about the Hogs right now, playing some good football lately, wins over Texas, wins over Texas A&M. You committed during the offseason. To see this performance by Sam Pittman's squad, how proud does it make you?
I mean, it made me excited. I mean, I'm just ready to go up there, join them so we could push for a natty.
In a second season alone for Sam Pittman, making this kind of difference for the Hogs in the SEC, what makes you think that this could even be grown in your 3 or 4 years on the Hill?
I mean, Coach Pittman, he a great man. He makes sure everybody's doing their job. So, I mean, I feel like if we all work together, we'll be great.
Now, Marion, when you watch these Razorbacks games, how do you kind of envision your fit with the Razorbacks?
I mean, I'm physical, so I mean, the O-line physical too, so I mean, the run game will be good.
You already got a state championship as a starter your sophomore year. For you in this squad, maybe a front runner in 7-4A, what would it mean to finish off your high school career at the state championship?
I mean, I feel like it'll be big. I mean, I feel like we'll be able to say that we completed our goal for the season.
Now, Razorbacks football may have been handed a loss this week, but switching gears to hoops, it's all smiles right now on the Hill. Five-star North Little Rock guard Nick Smith committed to Arkansas on Wednesday night. The senior became the most highly touted Hogs commit in the modern recruiting service era, ranked number 6 nationally. Relive the moments in downtown Little Rock as Smith chose where he'd take his talents.
First, I'd like to thank God, you know what I'm saying, without him, none of this would be possible. I'd like to thank my parents, my dad, my mom, you know, my siblings for believing me, my trainers, all the coaches, the BBE organization, Silver Hills, North Little Rock. Next year, I'll be committed to University of Arkansas.
Nick Smith is in downtown Little Rock, and he just committed to the Razorbacks.
Yes, sir. You know, just the culture around what Coach Muss had, and, you know, it's just really something me and my family couldn't pass up. You know, he was by far the most thing I was looking for in terms of like business and, you know, hoops. You know, I just had to take that chance. NBA league experience, though, he kept preaching that ever since, you know, since I started this recruitment process. And, you know, he came to the house visit. I wasn't really sure like if I was gonna tell him or not, you know what I'm saying, but I brought him to the side and said, you know, say my number 3 jersey, and he just hugged me like 12 times. Just his competitive drive really got to me. My reputation is everything, you know, coming back to the state, you know, staying here from 9th grade, from really middle school to high school, you know, my reputation is everything. I just wanted to prove to everybody that you can stay in the state and do what other people are doing. You know, Moses was really high rated, you know, coming in, but he wasn't like, you know, on anybody lottery draft boards, I don't think, like in the preseason. But, you know, just doing seeing what he did, you know, is just something I could relate to. I mean, well, if you know Mush is a competitor. He does not like to lose. You know, that's one of a gene I have, that I don't like losing. And, you know, I know for a fact that he's going to push me each and every day. He's going to push his team. And, you know, the season they had last year was a great season. My expectation is just to, you know, go in there and win. And, you know, a lot of people have like other accolades, other personal accolades. But if you know me, my whole thing is about winning. And, you know, hopefully if God bless me with the opportunity to go pro, I'll pursue that dream.
So Eric Musselman won Smith over. It sure sounds like he earned it, and Muss is a happy man as Landing Smith moved his 2022 recruiting class from number 8 in the nation to inside the top 3. Check out these 4 names. Smith is joined by Magnolia star Darian Ford, Barry Dunning out of Alabama, and Morrilton standout Joseph Pinion, who is in attendance to see Smith call the Hogs. And stay tuned as Muss is busy on the recruiting trail trying to bring in more studs, riding that momentum from the Razorbacks' Elite 8 run in 2021. Thank Chris behind the camera, Henry at the control room, and everybody that helps make this show possible. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight, and we'll see you next week on The Final Score.